I'm excited to have Peter Caron here on the show today. He's an IT leader with over 25 years of experience. He worked in different executive roles for companies like Here Technologies, HelloFresh, and Prima Assicurazioni. He specialized in the software development lifecycle optimization and transformation. He's native US, but living in Germany for over 27 years. Welcome on the show, Peter Caron. Hi, Peter. It's really great to have you here. Thank you so much for making it to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
You have over 25 years of experience in the tech field. So what are like some takeaways you still are helpful for you today on a regular basis that you made during this 25 years?
Okay, that's a difficult question. That's a loaded question, but let me try to answer that as best I can. So there, I think, are two things that I've really taken away from 25 years of experience. One is that the first 20 don't count. It's only really what you've learned in the last 3 to 5 years that matters. Technology has been changing so fast since the 1990s that many of the things that I took for granted about software development in the late 90s, 2000s, while they're still valid today, aren't particularly relevant for all people. Many of the things we already take for granted, the fact that continuous integration is the best way to develop software, test-driven development, behavioral-driven development. I wish people would do these things, but those things are not extraordinarily relevant to me today. I just would like everybody to do them. It's not a question of having to teach people about those. So the new technologies that have developed in the last 3 to 5 years are the most important. And the second thing that's extremely important that I've taken away is that no matter how many years of experience you have, you'll rarely ever run into the same problem twice. Now, I run into often the same results. So I go into a company searching for things that need to be done, how to prioritize fixes, problems, challenges, next steps. And while I see many of the same problems, what I find is that circumstances have gotten the company into that situation in a very different way. So if there's one thing I've learned is that many companies suffer from the same problem, but they all got there in a slightly different way. Therefore, there is no single solution to solve a particular challenge or problem that a company is facing. I think that in 25 years of doing this, combined with the fact that I've gained quite a bit of life experience, I don't sweat the small stuff much anymore, and I'm a little bit more focused on the underlying problems rather than the manifestations of the problems. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sounds great. And if there are always like different solutions to the same problem as the underlying root cause is different, as you said, how do you approach these problems?
Well, that's an excellent question, because that's one of the things I'm dealing with in the book that I'm trying to write at the moment. One thing that I found is that I remember the way that I learned how to do tech and how to be technical, which was to read books. I read a lot of books. I learned things through books. And the generation that came after me was a little bit less focused on learning by reading. And to a certain extent, you could still say to people, here, go read these books, go read this article. But the attention spans slowly decreased. The ability of people to consume books at the speed that I would expect, that changed. So learning and development, I think, has been a critical point where we still expect people of the two modern generations, the millennials and Gen Z, to learn in the same way we did, but they don't. They are fully digital, have been dealing with social media for a long time. And I think that senior leaders need to address the question of how people learn. And right now we have, because technology changes so fast, we have 3 or even 4 generations of people all working in the industry at the same time. And for the first time in a long time, perhaps ever, those 4 generations all learn things in a different way. So we can't expect the generation coming in now to just go off and read a book. We need them. We need to address their particular way of learning. They approach problems in a different way, and that needs to be respected and addressed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sounds challenging sometimes if you have that many mindsets and generations on one table. What are some other challenges or situations you more or less face on a daily basis as a chief technology officer?
Well, a lot of that depends on the company, what company, the particular area of the company, what problems they're facing, and what level of maturity. The challenges, however, are efficiency in software development. In other words, getting people the right tools and ways of working in order to produce software that's of a high quality. Introducing meaningful metrics into a software development process or the software development lifecycle, and making sure that developers understand that metrics are not there to measure individual developer performance, but they're there as a tool for developers themselves to be able to find the challenges and problems they're facing and address them. The second thing that I think is an important challenge or something facing any technical leader is, if you're in a tech company, and I'll get to what I mean by a tech company in a minute, but if you're in any sort of tech company, a company that uses technology to advance a business case, the number of executives, and sometimes including CTOs, who don't understand how technology is supposed to work or how it works, is far too high. And one of the biggest challenges I face is trying to raise the technical IQ of other people in the C-suite. Now, different people are going to understand that in a slightly different way. But what I mean really is that if you're going to have a technical company, or pretend you have a technical company, if you're the CEO or CFO, you really have an obligation to know something about how tech works. And right now, I think that many CTOs don't pay enough attention to their role as teachers or trainers or peers who help their colleagues raise their technical IQs. I think one of the biggest problems in many companies right now, especially smaller companies, is that the technical IQ of the C-suite is far too low.
I love the expression technical IQ. Never heard it before, but it's
actually,
cool. Yeah.
I stole that. I didn't make that up. I can't claim credit for that. That was a former CEO of a company I worked at a couple of years ago, who expressly identified that as one of the key process indicators that he wanted inside his company, and that was to raise the technical IQ of the C-suite.
Yeah. Sounds great. You said, or I read that you said, I am personally committed to implementing innovative technical and methodology transformation to improve software quality, reduce costs, and improve productivity regardless of domain or business. How does that look like for you?
Okay, that's again one of those compound sentences that needs to be picked apart a little bit. So, what I really mean there is, I believe that there is an underlying and fundamental, how would you say, foundational software development process that is independent of the kind of company that you're actually leading. Now, let me pause here for just a second and interject. I believe that we do the industry a disservice by talking about tech companies. When I say tech company, or we do, what we're really talking about is a spectrum. On one end of the spectrum, you have pure tech companies, SaaS companies, companies that deliver pure software products or shrink-wrapped even software products delivered in whatever way. And on the other end of the spectrum, you have tech-enabled companies. Consider a company that picks up an ERP system that uses SAP, for example, to manage their inventory. And in the middle, you have these varying degrees of tech-enabled companies, companies that use software to either sell a completely different product, insurance, a box of food, a book, or they use tech as a marketing tool or some other way to enhance the business objectives in some other way. So what I'm trying to say is, in all of those things, all of those kinds of tech companies, software development has certain commonalities. It has many things in common. And the fundamentals of software development shouldn't change depending on where you lie on that spectrum. So I'm talking about things like continuous integration, test-driven development, behavioral-driven development, pair programming, managing technical debt, and by that I really mean managing technical risk, finding ways that you can improve the efficiency of software development in order to help the business. At the same time, because I think that technical people oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes bury themselves in, oh, I'm just engineering, I'm not really concerned with that, they do the company a disservice. Software development, in my view, exists only to further a business objective. Yeah, it's not the lead here, unless you're developing an AI algorithm. Software is not your product, and if software is not your product, the software development lifecycle has to really concentrate on the business objectives. Never lose sight of the business objectives. But oftentimes we lose sight of that fundamental. So my quote that you picked up is essentially about that. There are some fundamental principles that every software development company or tech-driven, tech-enabled, or pure tech company should be following. Yeah. How much they follow it depends on where they fall on the spectrum, but that's what I meant by that.
Yeah, and I love the perspective that it's more about the business or the outcome, and development or software is the driver, and not like the main focus, even though you're a software developer or you working in the development department. And
for a long time, software developers, and I don't get me wrong, I think there are a lot of really creative and interesting people in the software development world. However, for a long time, and for many of them, it's been too easy to step up on a pedestal. And this, I think, is a bit dangerous. It never helps the business that you're working for if you consider your job more important than what the business objectives are.
Yeah, that's true. In the end, you're both working actually on the same or working towards the same goal, and not like separate goals or separate
Well,
things you're doing.
absolutely. I
Yeah.
absolutely agree. I once heard the CEO of a company back around 2003, 2004. He was a partner of Nokia,
Mm-hmm.
and he said the only objective of a company in the long run is to put off bankruptcy as long as possible. And I'm not sure I'd go that far, but I would say that software developers and all technical people, from the CTO down to the interns,
Mm-hmm.
need to remember that our job is to actually further a business objective.
Yeah, definitely.
That's really what it
Yeah.
is.
And what are your thoughts and what is your perspective on quality assurance and software testing, as in the end, the quality of what you develop needs to be great?
Yes, I think that is very important to manage the quality of the software you're producing. I do not actually believe that you're going to get that through most quality assurance programs.
So what's your approach in software testing, quality assurance? How do you approach this in your past companies, your current company? What's your approach on that? Or your
It's too,
learnings?
yeah, or my opinion perhaps is
Okay, let's go for that.
I would say it's very important that software quality is something that has to be built in right at the beginning. That means you need to test the outcome of your software. By that I mean you have to prove that your software meets a business objective. All too often, what we've done in the past 20 years, is that we've left testing and quality assurance to the end. And people will call this various things: end-to-end testing or quality assurance, etc. And developers will produce something and then a tester will test it. This is far too late. This is the area where software development deviates quite dramatically from manufacturing. When you manufacture a physical product, you can manufacture the physical product and at the end measure it, weigh it, test it for strength, test it for defects, etc., and then either use it or throw it away. Software doesn't fit that model very well. In software development, we need to be sure that we're making the best software we can at every step and early in the process. By this, most software developers should agree that you make small changes rapidly and test them as you're going along. So you reduce the feedback loop to as short a period as possible. If you can have the feedback loop done within a few minutes or a few hours, all the better. If you can have it done by somebody you're pair programming with sitting right next to you, even better. So it's as that delta T approaches zero, you actually find you get the best quality. You also have to understand that I could produce the best quality software possible, but if I produce the wrong thing for the customer, it doesn't really matter. So again, short feedback loops make a big difference here, because when I develop things rapidly and show changes quickly, the product owner or the product manager or the customer can comment or give feedback on that faster. So lots of changes, small changes, and small iterations is the best way to ensure software quality. One thing that I would say is that there is a economic incentive to this as well that's very important and that we shouldn't forget. When you create software that does not have high quality, you get burned twice. One is that your customers are not going to be happy because they're going to be dealing with software that's not good. But the second one is it's much harder to make changes, to maintain, to fix, to adapt, to extend software that's of low quality than it is to fix software of high quality. There was an article I read a year ago or so in which the researchers in Sweden who wrote the paper determined that it was up to 9 times slower to work on poor quality software than it was to work on high quality software. And that's something that every CEO and CFO should be paying attention to, because potentially it costs 5 to 9 times more money to produce bad software than it would to produce good software. So
definitely. And if you find the bug after release, it's much more expensive to fix it than if you're still in production.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that we've learned over the past years.
So
but even working on something, working something that's poor quality takes much longer.
Definitely. So when you develop something new, you have these short feedback loops and you test it like instantly. And afterwards, when it's launched, how do you handle software quality, like in the life cycle management?
Okay, good. That's a good question, because it's not just with new products. New products are perhaps the easier ones to set this in place. However, it's very productive. It's possible and productive to do this also with brownfield, so existing software. The first thing to do is to actually find out where your highest risk in your code is, and you can analyze and use some tools to figure out where your highest risk is. And let me give you an example. Let's say I have a piece of code, a class or a file, and it's very rarely changed. It's messy. Nobody understands it. It's sloppy, but it doesn't break. That is high technical debt, but low risk. If I have a piece of code in which it's the same sort of code, messy, sloppy, high technical debt, and I'm changing it on a regular basis because I'm trying to improve it, it has slightly higher risk because I'm changing it, but I can pretty much keep in mind what I'm doing because I'm focused solely on that. If there are 4 or 5 developers working on that same sloppy piece of code, and they're changing it multiple times per week, then suddenly it's not a question anymore of when are you going to have what if you're going to have a problem. It's when you're going to have a problem. So identifying those hotspots, if you will, is really important. There's a colleague of mine who wrote a program and now has a company that does exactly that. And if you can identify these, you can actually begin to pay down that risk, pay down that technical debt and that risk. So to get back to your question of how to do software development lifecycle, how to improve the software development lifecycle in brownfield, the way you do this is to identify those pieces of code that are the highest risk. In other words, the poorest quality code being changed the most often, high risk. And then you set people to working on that. We know for a fact that most bugs can be traced back to these kinds of code. So by finding this kind of code, you're not going to eliminate all bugs, but you're going to have a much better probability of eliminating more bugs. So what you would do, for example, in a simple example, is take a junior developer or somebody who's new to the project, give them this piece of code and say, listen, go in and do a proximity refactor. Just move the methods in this class around so that the methods that belong together are physically sitting next to each other. They're not at the beginning of the file and the end of the file. Don't change anything. but just do that.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can team them up with a more senior person or a person more familiar with the code base as a pair programming, and you'll have the advantage that somebody knowing the code base and then somebody who spent time working on that particular file, they will be able to then refactor that file, extract some methods, extract some classes, and do things in a safe way, and you will have reduced some of your code.
Mm-hmm.
And the real beauty of this is that when you actually examine code bases, you find that most of your highest risk code is being worked on in only 2 to 5% of your code base. Therefore, it's relatively easy and inexpensive to pay down a lot of that risk and remove the possibility and potential of those bugs. So again, creating quality software from scratch and creating quality software from existing software follow a similar pattern, and that's slow, methodical, small changes to the code base. And then, of course, as you extract your methods and extract your classes, write tests for those. Your test is your first user of the code, and you make sure that you prove, at least to the test, that your code works.
Now we talked a lot about code. How do you feel about kind of software testing on code level, meaning like based on IDs or other stuff in the code versus from a customer or user perspective? I don't mean manual by users, but you can test both automated, for example, or however. But what's your feeling on these two different approaches, or your thoughts?
My belief is that they're complementary to each other because they serve two different purposes. Now, one of the most interesting methodologies that it's developed in the last 15 or 20 years was behavioral-driven development, which stresses the outcome of the software that you're developing. Now, sometimes you can get to the desired outcome of software only by testing it when it's in a form that a user can use it. Does it satisfy the business objective or the customer objective I was setting out to do? On the other hand, there are some tactical things that most developers will have to do, which is writing unit tests when it's applicable, writing tests for integration. Also, I think it's extremely important to understand and test the interfaces between different domains or bounded contexts. So contract testing is extremely important. Am I really testing the right things for these business outcomes? So I think those two things that you mentioned are complementary. One is an outcome, and the other is testing very practical and pragmatic things in your code. Does this piece of code do what I think it's going to do?
Yeah. You're writing a book right now, or in the progress of writing a book right now. Do you want to share a little bit about what's it about, what we can expect from it, and when it's available?
Yes, I would very much like to do that. The book has just a working title of Technical Leadership. Now, somebody had made the suggestion that I call it Technical Leadership with an asterisk instead of the I, but I'm not sure I'm brave enough to do that just yet. The premise of the book is three things, and I've touched on a couple of them already. One is that for companies to call themselves tech companies, it requires an increase in the technical IQ of the C-suite. The second thing is that that's partially the responsibility of CTOs to bring that technical IQ up. Also, something that I haven't said yet, but I think is extremely important, is that CTOs have to stop being just engineering leads. They have to understand how marketing and sales works and how those organizations use tech. They have to understand finance. They have to understand the difference between OpEx and CapEx and in the development of software. They have to be able to talk with the CFO as an equal. And it's extremely important that the learning and development process and the hiring and recruiting process are not outsourced to HR. HR is not a specialized organization for technical hiring. That is the technical group that should be doing that. And this means that CTOs have to really up their game. And obviously, the most important thing is that the CTO has to be able to cooperate and communicate with the CEO. Otherwise, both of them are doomed. And the third thing that I want to stress with the book is that there is a new generation of software developers coming who will be relying quite a bit on AI, who don't learn in the same way, who have attention spans that are just a fraction of what I would expect from learned people. This doesn't mean that they're any worse, but they are fundamentally different. And I think we have to be able to use and apply the advantages that this new generation of developers will bring, and prepare them for leadership in the next generation. So that's what the book is mostly about, aimed at those three target audiences.
Do you already know when it's available?
I'm negotiating now with publishers. I'm writing as fast as I can, as hard as I can, but I don't expect this to be out before summer of next year.
Okay, great. And where could people find you online if they want to learn more about you and want to stay tuned or updated about the book release?
I'm on LinkedIn, but I also have a Substack where I stash my articles, and I have a couple of articles up there now. That's probably the best bet. It's Substack.myname or myname.substack, whichever it is. And on LinkedIn, there's always information there. The best way to find out anything about me is actually to read what I write, because I think that's most important. Peter Caron as a person is probably not so interesting, but I like to think that the ideas that I've put onto paper will stand the test of modern time, which is the next 2 to 3 years. Well, let's shoot for 2 to 3 months for now, but maybe there's the next 2 to 3 years if we're lucky.
Yeah, it's so interesting talking with you, and I could ask you tons of further questions. But in the respect of time, I would say for this time, we're done for now. But I, of course, love to follow up on this conversation. It was so great to talking with you and really interesting. And thank you to being here, and hope to talk again soon, and latest next summer about your new book.
Great. Thank you very much. It was nice talking with you.
Thank you.